Florida sixth grader arrested after confrontation over the pledge. So this happened in Lakeland, Florida. A Florida sixth grader faces charges of disrupting a school function and resisting arrest after a confrontation that followed his refusal to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. In a statement Sunday, Lakeland police say a school resource officer was alerted to a disturbance created by a student in the classroom. According to police, the student initially refused to leave the room, continued to be disruptive, and made threats while being escorted to the school's office by the officer and the school's dean. Really? Really, you guys, there was an officer there and the dean there, and they just couldn't handle this student, this one student. One student, an 11-year-old. Wow. Okay, let's continue. So the statement says the student was charged based on his failure to comply with the officer and the dean's orders, not his refusal to participate in the pledge. Polk County students aren't required to stand for the pledge. So basically, this kid did nothing wrong. So why did they want him to leave the room? Why did they want this kid to leave the room? It sounds like this kid was doing nothing wrong. He knew he was doing nothing wrong. They were fucking with him anyway, so he stood up for himself, and then they dragged him out of class, and now he's getting in trouble. That's what it sounds like to me. So let's continue. Okay, so the boy's mother said the 11-year-old normally declines to stand for the pledge, maybe because he thinks for himself. He had a substitute teacher on February 4th, and she had ordered him to stand up. The boy's mother said the school should have disciplined her son differently. He has moved to a private school. That could make it even worse. In a statement Monday, school district officials said the substitute teacher had not been aware of the policy allowing students to opt out of the pledge. She was asked to leave the school after the boy's arrest, and she would no longer be allowed to work in any of the district schools. Good. Good. Honestly, good. I have no sympathy for the teacher in that situation. None. I mean, it's understandable. Maybe she didn't know about that policy, but a student refuses to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm sure that student told her, hey, we don't have to, actually. And instead of just being like, all right, you get an officer in the classroom, you go, oh, no, we got to intimidate you. We got to force you to stand. Heaven forbid we encourage you to think critically for yourself. Heaven forbid we say, okay, hats off to you. That's your right. You're expressing, okay, that's cool. No. We got to get an officer in here. We got to get somebody in here. We got to intimidate you. We got to discipline you. And if you don't shut up and comply, we'll force you out of here. I'm glad that substitute teacher will not be working in that district any longer. I hope that substitute teacher never finds their way into another classroom. While we're on, that's a little harsh. No, it isn't. You know why? Because there's a lot of people in this country that do not have jobs, that cannot find work, and that are worthy of work. And there's teachers everywhere that are being mistreated. So if you have somebody that says, oh, here's an opportunity for me to get an officer in here to bully a kid, I'm glad you're not in the classroom. Because the students deserve better. And there are plenty of qualified people out there more deserving of the work. All right. So no one's pressing charges. I guess that's good. Here's what the police department says. A student was arrested for disrupting the classroom on February 4th. To be clear, the student was not arrested for refusing to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, well then why was he arrested? What were you telling him to do? Why did he have to do anything? If he was within his rights not to stand, why did he have to do anything? They don't say. They don't say he refused to stand and then he went over and started punching another student who was standing. And we told him to stop and he wouldn't, so we had to... It doesn't say that. If he did do that, it would say that. You see what I'm saying? If he actually did something disruptive, it would say what he did. They're just saying he refused to follow orders. You mean orders he shouldn't have had to be following in the first place? Because he didn't do anything wrong? He doesn't stand for the pledge on a regular basis? I didn't stand for the pledge when I was in high school. And I remember one time I got called out for it once and I was like, I'm an anarchist. I wasn't. I didn't even really, I was just, it was just like the only defiant thing I could do at the moment. So I did it. You know, I'm not, you know, like I didn't have strong convictions or anything. I I just listened to punk rock, and I was like, I'm not standing. But I was a smart kid. I got pretty good grades, so they didn't mess with me. They were like, just leave him alone. It's not worth the problem. I was like, I'm within my rights, and they just didn't mess with me. And there was never a substitute that got an officer in there to intimidate me and then remove me for not following orders. That's ridiculous. It's bad enough that every kid in America has to go to school in fear that they're going to get shot at any given moment. They have to have drills now. They have drills on what to do about a school shooting. And you can go on Twitter and look at some of the people you know, or some of the public figures you follow that have children that mention this stuff. You know, a comedian who I get to do shows with occasionally over the Jimmy Dore Show, Dave Anthony, really funny guy. He has a beautiful podcast called The Dollop. I highly recommend it. He was tweeting about what his kid was going through with all this stuff. It's terrifying for them. It's terrifying. They get it drilled into their head. Hey, this is what happens if a shooting is going on. Oh, and that might happen because it happens almost every freaking day. Nearly every day there's a school shooting in this country. So not only do they have to go to school out of fear they're going to get shot any given day, now they have to worry, an officer might just bully them. They might have to just leave the classroom for doing something they're allowed to do. This is something the kid did on a regular basis. And they bullied him anyway. Why? Because they wanted to. Because they knew they could get away with it. Because they knew they could issue a bullshit statement. He was refusing to comply with directions. What directions? One we had no business giving him. Directions we had no business giving him. Because he didn't do anything wrong. Land of the free. It's where we live, right? Land of the free. It's pretty good. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and